So, what do you do when your jewelry is not selling? We've all gone through those moments, the highs and lows, the ups and downs of making sales, of not making sales. And let me tell you, every jewelry seller, every jewelry reseller has dealt with this probably more times than they'd like to admit throughout their jewelry reselling journey. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to focus on what to do specifically when your jewelry is not selling. Because I have gotten lots of comments about this over the past few months. And I think because we are moving out of a slow time typically for us resellers, and now we're moving into a busier time. I thought that it would be a really good idea to revisit this topic so we can make sure we are positioning ourselves as well as our business to capitalize on making the most sales so we can make the most money possible. So that's the direction we're going to go in today, jewelry friends. Hello. My name is Desiree, and you know that I am your jewelry reselling bestie. So, what are some things we need to really think about, plan for, maybe even restructure our businesses around when it concerns making more sales and when we are dealing with maybe a season or a slow time of just not making any sales? Well, I'm going to cover a few things today that maybe you might want to bookmark this particular episode because I think some of these ideas are things that sometimes we don't think about when we're right in the midst of struggling to make sales. All right, so before we get into the details of that, I like to always remind you to make sure you visit our website, jewelryresellerspodcast.com, because over there you can opt in to our newsletter. And when you do, I will send you a list of the 20 best selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on that list, and a lot of you said you have found it very helpful. And if you did not know, I just relaunched the newsletter. So I'm really excited because I'm going to be sharing a lot more personal aspects of my life, my jewelry reselling business, and maybe some things that are affecting us as jewelry resellers just in general as well. So I've got a lot of exciting plans. So I would love to have you join the newsletter because I'm also going to be making some surprise announcements in there first as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's topic because I really had to think about this because I've had my slow seasons as well. There is no reseller who makes 100% of the sales 100% of the time. Every single reseller, every single jewelry seller has gone through these times of slow sales or no sales. And so we want to really figure out what's going on, and we really want to unpack this because it's not really something that has just a straight answer or something that's really easy to figure out. Sometimes it could be, but sometimes it's going to require us to have a different perspective or maybe to kind of think about things a little bit differently because obviously something needs to change. And that's one of the places where I see a lot of resellers get stuck. They will complain, oh, things are slow. Oh, my stuff's not selling. But at the same time, they don't formulate a plan to do something different. So if we want different results, we're going to have to take different actions. And that's what today's episode is going to help you do. All right. So we've all done it. Like I said, we've listed the stuff, we've taken the photos, we've priced it at a price that we feel is comparable or fair or profitable for us and our business. And for some reason, the jewelry pieces are not selling. Like I said, I've been there many times and I know the struggle and I know it's real. But, we're going to figure out, you know, because every reseller is different. And so some of the things that may work for me may not work for you and vice versa. So I really want you to Think about this episode as kind of a buffet. All right, you're going to pick and choose what works. You're going to pick and choose things that you may want to try. And if something doesn't work for you or doesn't make sense or doesn't really fit within your jewelry reseller narrative, that's totally fine. You can ignore it, you can postpone it, or whatever. Okay, so you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to do all of these things. Okay, so I always want you to remember you are ultimately the one in control of your business, and you are the one that makes the decisions of what goes, what stays, what to do, and what you don't do. So let's start with part one. We really want to diagnose the real problem here, because slow sales or no sales, sometimes um, it may not have anything to do with you, right? Even the stores that have the best jewelry, they have days where they don't make sales either. All right, but we're going to kind of take a proactive approach to this, and we're going to really zero in on what we can do. What can we change? So the first thing I want you to ask yourself is really look at your jewelry. Is this jewelry that people actually want? Is this stuff that's in demand right now? Is there something about this particular piece of jewelry or about all of my jewelry, depending on, what we're evaluating here? Do people want this particular jewelry? Some jewelry, unfortunately, just is not desirable. I know we don't want to hear that, but I have gone through my share of trying to sell pieces over and over again on different platforms, and for whatever reason, nobody's interested. Does it mean that the stuff is actually bad? Well, it could be. Or is it just stuff that nobody wants right now? And maybe it's something we have to liquidate in another way, or maybe we have to store it for a later date, or maybe we kind of repackage it, and I'll have some ideas about that coming up later in the episode. So, what you want to do is ask yourself, do people even want this jewelry right now? Sometimes, like I said, jewelry just is not desirable, even if it's pretty, even if it's vintage, even if it has a name brand or is made by a particular designer, because I have made that mistake too, thinking, oh, every Trifari piece is valuable. Well, that's not the case. Sometimes too, there's pieces within certain particular jewelry lines that nobody wants, right? It's just the reality of how it is. And sometimes things were trendy, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It doesn't necessarily mean they're trendy or in demand now. So we have to be really realistic as we evaluate our inventory. I think that's the first step when we are trying to figure out, why is our jewelry not selling? Why are we not, why are people not interested in some of these jewelry pieces that I have for sale? All right, so that's going to be the first step. And, you know, I wrote this down in my notes too. It's not about how much you paid for it or how much you love it. It's about what today's buyers actually want. And I know this is sometimes a very difficult pill to swallow, but if you can detach your emotions out of it and just think of this as a business owner, I think it will be a lot easier. But I know a lot of us get emotionally attached to our inventory. Like we say, oh my gosh, it took me so long to find this, or I paid so much. And that makes it really difficult for us to be objective looking at the pieces or that inventory. But that's really what you have to do. All right. Now, if the piece is desirable, if you see other resellers are selling similar things for, decent money, the next thing you want to look at is your presentation. How are your photos? Are you showcasing the jewelry in the best possible way? And this will take practice. I've talked about how to photograph jewelry. I think I've even done a blog post on it and how to stage your jewelry, depending on what platform you're selling on. If you're selling in a live show, if you're selling in a pop-up shop or something like that. So you want to make sure that you get the absolute best photos that you can. A lot of us use our phones, our camera, our phones, our the camera on our phones, and that's totally fine. But you just want to make sure that you can showcase the jewelry to the best of your ability. All right. The third thing you want to think about is reassess your price. Now, here is where things get a little bit interesting because there have been times where I actually have increased the price of some jewelry pieces and they sold. I know it's counterintuitive, but sometimes that method and that strategy can work. Now, I'm not saying to double the price, but raising the price, maybe a dollar or two or five, sometimes can actually tweak the algorithm and maybe, right? Maybe you might make the sale. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you're going to have to adjust the price lower and you may have to decrease your price a dollar, $2, $5, whatever. Because here's what a lot of people do when they are searching for jewelry. Sometimes they will search for jewelry within a specific price range. So let's say somebody's looking for a particular jewelry piece and they say, oh, I want it to be $50 up to $100, whatever. Well, if your piece is priced at $49.99, you may not show up in those search results, right? But if your piece was priced at $52, you would show up in those search results. All right. So sometimes you can play with the pricing a little bit in that way. It also goes the other way. Like I said, sometimes if you decrease your pricing just a little bit, that could be enough to move the piece and make the sale. But of course, we don't want to be too unrealistic. And we still want to make sure that our prices are comparable to what is already being sold that is similar to that piece. Okay, so, and this is point four I want to make. Make sure that you're on the right platform. Now, I know the majority of us sell on eBay. I like to sell on Whatnot, Poshmark Live, and District. I still have some some listings on eBay, so it's not, totally out of the game. But you want to make sure that you are on the right platform for the type of jewelry that you're selling. Some of you who may sell new or handmade or maybe upcycled jewelry, of course, Etsy is going to be way better for you than eBay. And for some of you who like to do what I do, quick flips, maybe selling in bundles, of course, live selling is going to be a little bit more worth your time and effort. Now, you can do a hybrid and you can sell on all the platforms. You can cross list, you can do whatever you need to do. But remember, the more exposure you give your jewelry, the higher of chance you make the sale. All right. So think about the platforms. Think about exactly which platform is best for the type of jewelry that you're selling. And then, try experiment on some other platforms as well and see if you can get those pieces moving. All right, so now I want to talk about some quick fixes that I think could work to help you make those jewelry sales for things that have been sitting for a long time. Now, remember, typically jewelry is a slow seller unless it's something that is highly collectible, highly in demand, or something that is so unique and rare that somebody just snatches it up when they see it. All right, but typically jewelry is not a fast moving seller. Now, you can move jewelry pieces fast if you are selling them in the live selling format. That has been my experience, and that is the experience of a lot of other jewelry resellers that I know. They want to move pieces quickly, so most of the time they will sell them in the live selling format, either on Whatnot or on YouTube. Okay, so let's talk about quick fixes. Number one, I already mentioned this, new pictures. Now, the thing is I know this is kind of a hassle and it takes time because you feel like, oh, I've already taken the pictures. Who wants to spend time taking pictures all over again? But if it's a decent piece of jewelry and you're asking, a decent price, I think it is worth it. And you don't have to do them all at once. Maybe you can just pick one listing a day that you retake the photos and see if you can get them better and see if you can, really highlight and show the details of that particular piece. Number two, you want to revise your titles and descriptions. Now, I have seen this work amazingly well, because a lot of times when we list our jewelry, either we don't know exactly how to create a strong listing, or maybe we didn't know a whole lot about the jewelry piece at the time we listed it, but now it's 6 months or a year later and we know a little bit more, and now we understand title structure and we understand the importance of keywords. So rewriting your titles and your descriptions can go a long way in helping you to move slow selling jewelry pieces. Now, if you struggle with this, you know that I have created a tool that will do this for you. It's called Jewelry Bestie, and you can try it and you can see that this will do the hard work for you. All right, Jewelry Bestie will give you a title, a description, keywords and tags, everything you need in order to get that jewelry sold. All right, so you can head on over to jewelrybestie.com if you're interested. Let's see. Number 3, you want to adjust your price. I already talked about this too. Sometimes just, a $2 difference or a dollar difference can reset the algorithm and attract some new watchers, maybe some new eyes onto your piece. Again, depending on what platform you're selling on. Small tweaks do show activity, and sometimes can boost the visibility of your jewelry pieces in search. All right, the other thing and this is what I like to do, you can try bundling some slow movers. This has been a strategy that I have used and it has worked well. Maybe you have 10 jewelry pieces that have been sitting for a year. Well, you might want to bundle them up and sell them as a jewelry lot or a themed bundle, and you can move them that way. Because I've noticed, and I've talked about this many times, a lot of buyers are looking for bundles, lots, and I think it's because more people want to get more for their money. Instead of just buying one piece, they would like to get 10 jewelry pieces if they can. So you may want to try that and see if it helps you to create some new interest in some of those jewelry pieces that have been sitting a while. And you can create bundles on all kinds of themes. You can do like gold tone jewelry lot, silver tone jewelry lot, vintage jewelry lot, wearable jewelry lot. I've talked about this in many episodes. So try something and see if it can't help you. And then the last point in this section I have is to run a short sale or a promotion. Sometimes even marking things down 10% or creating a coupon, again, depending on what platform you're on eBay, you do have the option to do that. If you do have a store, you can run sales, you can run promotions, you can offer a coupon. And sometimes this will help you sell some slow moving items as well. All right, especially because now we're kind of moving into the holiday season. A lot of buyers are looking for discounts, they're looking for sales, they're looking for ways that they can, save money. And the other thing is, like, you want to plan the timing of when you run these promotions. Like I said, right now is probably a good time to do it as we move into the holiday season. But you can also do this too if it ties into a holiday or if it ties into a specific time. And what I mean by that is a lot of resellers will plan sales right after Christmas, like around January, February, because it's tax season. And a lot of people do get tax refunds and then they go shopping. So pay attention to the timing when you run these promotions, because sometimes you can, coordinate your promotion with something that is happening that could increase the chances of you making the sale. All right. Okay. Now, the other thing too is if you are doing any of these things, you want to announce it somewhere so your potential buyers can see. I like social media, but if you have a newsletter or something like that, you can also mention, hey, in my eBay store, we're running a big sale. Everything is 20% off, or whatever you're doing, and make sure people know that you are trying to move some jewelry pieces. Maybe you want to clear out some slow sellers and you say you're having a clearance sale. All right, so you want to make sure that people are aware of what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're doing it. Okay, because sometimes people may not be able to buy right then and there, but they may be able to buy a couple days later when they get paid, or maybe during the weekend when they have time to sit back and really scroll through all of the things that you have marked down. So make sure you communicate that you are running a sale or you have uh, listed some new bundles. All right, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that your potential buyers know. Okay, so let me see where we are next. Now, sometimes you can do all of the right things. You can take amazing photos. Well, let me backtrack. You can buy the most amazing, beautiful jewelry. Then you can take the most amazing photos. Then you could create these stellar listings. And you'll do all of that. Oh, and then you'll run a beautiful markdown sale. And sometimes you'll do all of that and your jewelry still is not moving. Well, this is when we have to get really real with ourselves and decide, is it time to let these pieces go? Now, when I say let them go, I don't mean just toss them in the trash or donate them somewhere. But when I say let them go, I say, is it time maybe to put these pieces into a craft lot? Is it time to move these pieces into a wearable lot that you sell for really cheap? I actually had to do this recently. I have a whole bunch of earrings that I have tried to sell. I want to say I've run them in shows at least 4 times now. I've had them listed on eBay multiple times, and for some reason they just don't sell. So now I really have to get creative as to what I'm going to do with all of these earrings. And what I did, and I've shared this before, is a lot of my slow moving or non moving jewelry pieces, I use them as freebies. I use them as giveaways, right? So let's say I do a show on Whatnot and somebody buys something from me, a necklace, whatever. Well, maybe for that particular show, I'll say with every purchase today, you can choose a pair of earrings on my tray. And I will have a tray of all the earrings laid out. And the earrings, they don't weigh anything. So I can easily throw them in with their order without having to worry about an increase in shipping price. All right. So think about how you can creatively move the jewelry without necessarily taking a loss on it. Right. So, sure, maybe those earrings didn't sell, but at least they're helping other jewelry pieces that I have sell, right? So if people know they're going to get a free pair of earrings with every necklace they buy from me today, well, those earrings are still helping me to generate income and to generate sales. So even if your jewelry pieces don't sell directly, understand that it's not a waste. You can still creatively move those pieces. And like I said, help support other areas of your business and help you make money in other ways. Now, the other idea is you can do a giveaway. And you don't have to only do this on a platform like Whatnot. You can do it on your social media. You could say, hey, I've got these 5 pairs of earrings that I'm giving away to everybody who follows me on Instagram. All right. And then I will I will go through my followers and pull a random name. So make sure you're following me or make sure you're subscribed to my channel, however you want to do it. And you can use some of these slow moving pieces as giveaway prizes. Now, of course, you're not making money with that particular creative way, but it is benefiting you in other ways because it's growing your following, growing your online presence, and it's attracting a lot of attention to some of your social pages because people love giveaways. All right. So, you can do a lot of things. And the nice thing is, people love jewelry, especially free jewelry. You can do a lot of things to kind of highlight what you're doing with your jewelry. Okay. And you can, um, like, there's so many things you can do, but I know the gift with purchase kind of thing has worked really well for me. And also giveaways. I've seen people do that on Whatnot and on social media. So, and then, of course, making lots, craft lots, wearable jewelry lots. I've done podcast episodes on that if you are curious as to how that works or how you can set it up. And I remember one jewelry reseller, she was quitting reselling, and she had a lot of jewelry. It was her stuff left over that didn't sell. And what she decided to do was she decided to give it away to, I think she donated it to a women's shelter. Women who are, I think, were in certain situations that just were not good. And she donated the jewelry to these women who were trying to rebuild their lives. And so they had a nice piece of jewelry, maybe when they went on job interviews, or maybe just for a special occasion or whatever. So you can always figure out something, right? So don't just throw it away, right? We can always figure out a way to benefit from, the jewelry that's not selling, and there's probably other ideas that maybe some of you know that I haven't thought about. So if you can think of some other ways, please share those in the comments, because I think it will help all of us. All right. So now, here's something that I want you to keep in mind as well. Don't let one stubborn piece, don't let one stubborn piece of jewelry hold up your entire shelf space or inventory space. All right. Be willing to let go of things that you need to let go of. Now, I'm not saying a piece that's obviously very valuable and maybe that particular piece will just take a little bit longer to sell because it's a very, unique piece. But I'm talking about those things that we've had listed for so long. We've done the price drops, we've done the promotions, things like that, where sometimes it literally is just dead weight in your business. All right. So think about the space that you can free up. Think about how you can move and maybe liquidate that stuff very quickly. So that way you can buy better inventory or different inventory, because now you know what doesn't work for you. Okay, let's see where we are. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is mindset and motivation, because I think this is something that could be challenging for a lot of us. I know for me, sometimes I do struggle with overthinking a lot of things, right? I think, oh my gosh, if this isn't selling, it must mean I'm not a good reseller, or it must mean my inventory is horrible, or it must mean I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes we can internalize certain things, and we take it as something is wrong, or that we are not good enough in some way. And so I really want to encourage you to understand that slow sales don't mean that you failed. All it is feedback. All it is us learning what doesn't work for us. It doesn't mean we did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that we are not good resellers, or it doesn't mean that we can't do this. It just means that, oh, we found some particular inventory that doesn't work for us. And so now we are going to use that as feedback and input to do something different the next time around. And I know this is hard. It takes a lot of inner dialogue to really crack this, because so many of us, um, we see it as a personal reflection of who we are. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way society glamorizes successful, businesses. And then we see all the videos on YouTube of resellers making thousands of dollars, and so it's hard to not compare ourselves or to find fault with what we're doing when we see other people, winning at this game. And I'm here to tell you that the fact that you're doing this and the fact that you're willing to learn and the fact that you are open to doing something different means that you're already winning. You are already, light years ahead of people who just give up, right? And I know, you know, jewelry is not an easy category to learn. Jewelry is not, easy to source even. Um, and that's kind of why I've created this podcast and why I share this information, because I know it's not easy, but it can be done, and it can be done very, very profitably. So that's really what I want you to think about and embrace as you're going through these slow seasons, because every reseller does. All right, even the top dogs at the top of the food chain, the reseller food chain, even they have had moments of slow sales or no sales. I can guarantee you that. Now, maybe it was a while ago when they didn't know as much as they do now, but I promise you, every reseller goes through these dips. It's just the normal part of doing business. It's the normal part of being a reseller. And then as you learn and you grow, you do better, and those slow seasons happen less and less and less. All right. So, the other thing I have on my list as it relates to mindset and motivation, remember, you just keep going. You can't sell what you don't list or relist. Sometimes we have to list things several times, right? I've had to do that many times, and you never know. Sometimes it'll sell on the second time you list it or the third time. All right. It's just a matter of, how many times are you willing to do this? How many times are you willing to list it? So remember, every slow seller teaches you something, either about trends, about timing, about what is in demand, about particular styles of jewelry. And it also teaches you something about yourself. It teaches you what is your tolerance level for jewelry that may not sell quickly. Are you willing to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years? Or are you one of those people that, I like to sell my stuff within 6 months? So you start to learn what is acceptable for you as a reseller. Now, for me, certain pieces I know are just going to take longer, and I'm willing to wait on certain pieces. But then there's some pieces where if it hasn't sold in 6 months, I'm ready to bundle it up and move it in a craft lot or a wearable lot or whatever. So you may figure out some of those parameters for yourself too as you are learning what works for you and what doesn't. Okay, so we talked about a lot in today's episode, and I really hope that it helps you, because I know the frustration of not selling jewelry, and you're doing all the work, you're doing all the right things, and you look at your analytics and you're like, well, why am I not making money? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to change? So I'm hoping that this episode really helped you figure that out and really gave you some structure and some ideas, so you know what to do and you know what needs to be changed. All right. And it's not easy. I've said that many times. It's not easy, but it can be done. I promise you, it can be done. Okay, so let me make sure I have not missed anything in my notes. So if your jewelry isn't selling, start by asking, is this a desirable piece? And then you're going to move into all of the things that we talked about: photos, pricing, keywords, listing, and then moving the stuff as needed in whatever way makes sense for you. All right, I think that is it, jewelry friends. I think that is it. All right, so now I want to know your thoughts. What do you do when your jewelry's not selling? Or are you one of those amazing resellers that doesn't really have to deal with this problem as often as some of us have to deal with it, right? Do you have any tips, tricks, ideas, strategies that you do when some of your slow moving jewelry is just not selling? Please share that with us so we all can learn and we all can, do something different, better, um, bigger, bolder, faster, whatever we need to do, right? Because I always say at the end of the day, we're here to make money and there's no shame in that. And sometimes we're going to have to switch things up in order to hit those money goals that we set for ourselves. All right. So, and here's another thing I wrote down because someone told me this. A slow month doesn't mean that you're failing. It means that you're learning what sells. All right. So remember, I talked about this earlier. Everything is data, everything is feedback. And then we analyze the information that we learn as, time goes on, right? We learn what works, we learn what doesn't work. All right. So nothing is ever wasted as it relates to effort, energy, and attention when doing this business. Okay. So, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's something I missed as it relates to this topic, because I am more than willing to do a follow up or a part two if there's something that you think um, I need to maybe go into more detail about, because I just want to help us make the money we want to make. That's really my whole intent and my purpose of doing these episodes and doing this podcast and creating the tools and the products that I have for you. Okay. So that's going to be it for this episode, Jewelry Friends. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will definitely see you again really soon.